One of the two resorts Ashlee Jenae visited in Tanzania has just broken its silence since the 31-year-old influencer's death, and this is not coming from a blogger or an anonymous tipster, but directly from the resort's own executive. What he revealed exposes things nobody in the public knew about Joe McCann, about the couple's stay, and about the resort where Ashlee died. All of it collapses the version of this trip that has been on your timeline for 2 weeks, and it could be the thin line that finally exposes Joe. For many of you already following this case, you have seen the engagement video, you have seen the birthday footage, the one where Ashlee is walking behind a lion at the base of a Tanzanian wildlife reserve, and Joe McCann drops to one knee as the animal moves away behind them, the one where she is feeding a giraffe beside rose petals spelling HBD Ashlee on the ground. Both clips went viral within days of her posting them. Both have been reshared across every platform in the 2 weeks since she died. Well, it is from this specific property where those videos were filmed that bold new claims have now surfaced, and what the resort is saying is alarming. So before we go any further, let us be clear on the exact property we are talking about. The property is called Serval Wildlife Lodge. It sits at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro in northern Tanzania, more than 1,000 kilometers from the island of Zanzibar, where Ashlee eventually died. Rooms there run approximately $950 per night. It is one of the most exclusive wildlife lodges in the country. And this week, the executive director of this lodge, a man named Hamud, placed a public statement on the record with the Tanzania Times. What he said in that published statement rewrites the public understanding of this trip piece by piece. And when you put the pieces together, what emerges is not a series of unfortunate coincidences. It is a pattern with Joe McCann at the center of it. The first piece of that pattern is the arrival. According to Hamud, Ashlee and Joe landed in Tanzania on the first day of April, but they did not take a taxi. They did not arrange their own ground transport. Serval Wildlife Lodge management personally sent staff to meet them at Kilimanjaro International Airport and then drove the couple directly to the property. This is not how first-time guests are welcomed at a Tanzanian wildlife lodge. This is how established relationships are serviced, and it confirms what has been rumored in the comments for 2 weeks but never verified until now, that Joe McCann had been to Tanzania before, had existing connections with this specific property, and was bringing Ashlee into a country he already knew his way around. The second piece of the pattern is the proposal itself. On April 3rd, Ashlee posted the video. Joe down on one knee, the lion moving off behind them. Her caption reading, "Still taking this in, somewhere in Africa." The internet treated it as the most romantic proposal of the year. But according to Hamud, the proposal was not improvised. It was not a spur-of-the-moment gesture. The location, the animals, the timing, all of it was part of a pre-arranged package Joe had booked in advance. The engagement Ashlee thought was spontaneous was, on the Tanzanian end, a scheduled appointment. The surprise was only a surprise to her. That same pattern extends into the birthday. The giraffe, the rose petals on the ground, the caption, "Chapter 31 and I'm exactly where I need to be." Ashlee's final social media post before her death. According to Hamud, the birthday party was also previously arranged and held at the Serval property, also pre-booked, also pre-staged, also purchased as a package experience. Which means the two most photographed, most shared, most viewed moments of Ashlee's final week were not moments of private affection. They were deliverables Joe had paid for weeks before she ever landed in the country. Ashlee believed in what she was living, but the person orchestrating it was operating on a script she was not given access to. And here is the detail almost no one covering this case has publicly flagged yet. In the same Tanzanian Times statement, Hamud did something Tanzanian hospitality executives almost never do. He named the other resort, by name, in print, on the record. He identified Zuri, Zanzibar as the place where, in his own words, Ashlee died. Tanzania's tourism industry runs on collective reputation. Resorts do not publicly comment on incidents at other properties. It simply is not done. Hamud broke that protocol deliberately. He did it because the photos circulating online from his lodge were being associated with a death that did not happen there. And that level of public distancing does not happen over a small concern. It happens when a property senses the other property is about to become a serious problem. There is one final detail in the Hamud statement, and it is in what he did not say. Nowhere in the published quotes is there a word of condolence for Ashlee or her family. No expression of grief over a young woman who spent her last happy days on his property. The framing is entirely commercial. The lodge is protecting its brand, which tells you that on the Tanzanian side of this story, the first named voice to speak publicly has already moved past mourning and into reputation control. That is the environment this investigation is now taking place in, and everything the world has been looking at for 2 weeks was arranged in advance by the man now at the center of that investigation. Before we go into what really happened the night Ashlee died, all what you are hearing in this video is the product of extensive cross-checked research. That is what this channel is about, cutting through the noise to bring real accountability to cases like this. So, if you care about the truth of what happens to young women like Ashlee, women who leave home full of life and never make it back, we invite you to be a voice that speaks for them. Subscribe and stand with us. And if you are getting value from this video already, like and share it with someone. We sincerely appreciate it. Now that we understand that Joe pre-arranged the first half of this trip down to the rose petals on the ground, a different question starts forming about the second half, because if the happy moments were orchestrated in advance, what was the rest of the trip? And more specifically, what was the night of April 8th at Zuri, Zanzibar? Now this is where things get a bit complicated. According to medical documentation from the Tanzanian hospital where Ashlee was first received, Joe told authorities he found her hanged on the door of the villa. That phrasing appeared in the report with explicit attribution, written as, in the original language, according to her husband. The physicians themselves flagged the source of this narrative. They did not record it as their own observation. They recorded it as Joe's claim, which is a significant detail because it means that at the earliest documented medical touchpoint in this case, the people closest to the body were already treating Joe's version as a statement that needed attribution rather than a fact they could independently confirm. The police version, reported by the Associated Press and Global News, tells a different story. Zanzibar police stated that Ashlee was found in a closet with a belt around her neck, not on a door, not in the main room of the villa, in a closet. Police also stated that the person who found her was not Joe. It was a hotel worker who had been delivering a phone charger Ashlee had earlier requested, who found the door unanswered, used an emergency key, and entered the room alone. So on the two most important facts of how Ashlee was found, the location and the person who discovered her, Joe's version and the police version contradict each other directly. The family's public statement posted to Instagram on April 12th described Ashlee as having been found unconscious in her villa, notably softer than the police version, notably different from Joe's version, which tells you the family is not operating from direct information either. They are reacting to what they have been told, piece by different sources, with no single version lining up. American Tribune, covering the case, explicitly flagged the gap, noting that in cases where a partner's explanation of a woman's death does not align with the physical evidence, the family is often the last to be told the complete picture.
And then there is the matter of the time gap. Ashlee's mother, Yolanda Denise Endres, stated publicly in her CBS Philadelphia interview that Joe contacted her approximately 11 hours after the incident occurred.
Joe McCann had something to do with your daughter's death?
It's under investigation, and we don't know what went on.
It's under investigation, and like we said, we just want transparency. Today, investigators in Tanzania held a news conference where they said they are questioning McCann and they are holding his passport until the autopsy results are complete.
11 hours in which her daughter was either in critical condition or already deceased, and Joe, the person closest to Ashlee in Tanzania, her fiancé of less than a week, had not placed a single call. Her father, Harry Robinson, added another detail in the same interview. After that first call, the family never heard from Joe again. The next update about their daughter did not come from the man who proposed to her. It came from the hotel, informing them she had died. So the official conclusion of this case currently rests on this structure: one man's account of how his fiancée died, contradicted by police in two key details, softened by family in phrasing, and accepted by Tanzanian authorities as the basis for a public ruling of suicide. A second Tanzanian hospital that received Ashlee listed her cause of death as cerebral hypoxia by strangulation and suffocation, a clinical description that tells you how oxygen stopped reaching her brain, but does not tell you whether the mechanism was self-inflicted or inflicted by someone else. That distinction is what a full forensic examination is supposed to resolve, which is what makes it notable that Zanzibar police issued a conclusion before that resolution was made public.
To understand why a public conclusion was reached so quickly and why the family is struggling to push back against it, you have to understand the country this is unfolding in. Tanzania scored 41 out of 100 on the 2024 Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index, where 0 is highly corrupt and 100 is very clean. That places Tanzania 82nd out of 180 countries, above the sub-Saharan African regional average of 33, but well below the global average of 43. Within that baseline, specific institutions score worse than the national average. According to a published country risk analysis, half of Tanzanian households surveyed believe the national police force is corrupt. The Tanzanian judicial system itself has been documented as tainted by corruption and subject to executive influence, with court clerks and magistrates known to accept payments to open, misdirect, or determine the outcomes of cases. None of this means any specific officer or court in the Ashlee Jenae case has been compromised. That is a claim no one can verify today. But the institutional context is documented, it is public, and the family is operating inside it. Zanzibar specifically compounds the problem. Human rights monitoring organizations have documented that most media outlets in Zanzibar are controlled by the government. In practice, that means the Tanzanian journalists closest to this story, the ones who could pull hotel records, press staff for testimony, or push for the release of surveillance footage, are operating under constraints their counterparts elsewhere in the world are not. The family has been asking for Zuri Zanzibar surveillance footage for 2 weeks. No independent Zanzibar-based outlet has published it. That is not an accident. That is structural, and it is part of why Joe chose to bring Ashlee here. Against that institutional backdrop, one voice has been largely ignored by the official ruling, and that is Ashlee's voice. On February 7, 2013, when Ashlee was 18 years old, she posted to her personal social media the words, "Suicide is never the answer." She said it in her own voice under her own name 13 years before that same explanation was offered up for her own death. That statement does not by itself prove how she died, but it is a piece of evidence about who she was in her own words long before anyone had reason to doubt her. The people closest to her have not accepted the suicide conclusion either. Savannah Britt, who identified herself publicly as a friend, posted to X that anyone who knew Ashlee knew she would never take her own life and called for justice by name. Other friends, including childhood friend T. Morgan, who knew Ashlee from elementary school, have spoken on record questioning Joe's version and raising pointed questions about how well the family actually knew the man who proposed to her. These are not anonymous commenters guessing from a distance. These are named people with documented relationships to Ashlee going back decades. And then there is the piece of context that ties the whole pattern together. Joe McCann is the founder and CEO of Asymmetric Financial, a cryptocurrency hedge fund once backed by high-profile Silicon Valley investors. His estimated net worth has been publicly reported at around $45 million. But in December of 2025, just 4 months before this Tanzania trip, he announced he was winding down Asymmetric's Liquid Alpha Fund. That wind-down followed reports that the fund had lost up to 78% of its value across the previous year. So the man who pre-booked the engagement package, who pre-arranged the birthday celebration, who personally handled the airport coordination, was entering Tanzania with the public image of a successful crypto executive and the private reality of a collapsing flagship fund. which puts every decision he made on that trip in a different light. The online conversation has outpaced the official investigation, and with good reason. Cardi B publicly stated that Ashlee did not take her own life. A GoFundMe launched by Ashlee's father passed its $50,000 target within days, surpassing $58,000 as the family works to bring her body home from Tanzania. Public petitions demanding the release of Zuri Zanzibar surveillance footage have circulated across every major platform. The public has looked at the same pattern we have walked through in this video and reached its own verdict. What is missing is the investigative will to match it. When you assemble the pieces in order, the picture is clearer than any individual detail suggests. That is a pattern, and when a pattern this clean lines up consistently, it has a name. Also, 3 things still have to break in this case before the full truth is established. The full forensic report has to be made public and examined by experts the family trusts, not only the Tanzanian authorities who issued the original conclusion. The Zuri Zanzibar surveillance footage has to be released, or the decision to withhold it has to be explained. And Joe McCann, who has so far spoken only through his own account and through hospital paperwork that quotes him, has to make a public statement under circumstances where his words can be tested. Until at least one of those happens, the only voice that has spoken clearly about what Joe did in Tanzania is the voice of Fahad Nasser Hamud, who confirmed that the entire romantic narrative of this trip was something Joe paid for in advance. The resort where Joe proposed has already spoken, the resort where Ashlee died has not, and until one of the people who actually knows what happened that night produces something that matches Joe's story, every new fact that emerges in this case will be measured against what Hamud has already placed on the record, because the dream trip the world watched was not what the world thought it was. Ashlee Jenae's story is not over. Her family has asked questions that have not been answered, and the man at the center of this case still has not given a full public account. This channel will be here when each new development breaks. If that is the kind of accurate, well-detailed video you enjoy watching, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss what comes next. And drop in the comments the one question you most want answered as this story develops.